I do have a strong perspective that dads matter, and particularly dads matter in the lives of sons. I wasn't always the best example of a father. I had anger from time to time, frustration from time to time, stress from time to time. To be very honest, I said, God, if this is what you're asking me to do, my answer is, of course, yes. But I said, if this is not you, if you're not in this, I don't want to do it. Is that I just firmly believe God puts people in your path and in your life for very specific reasons. I mean, I could go all the way back to, when I was young, my parents were divorced. I think I was in 7th grade, and dad disappeared, right? So he was out for a big chunk of my formative years as a male. And I don't want to come off as toxic masculine or anything like that, but I do have a strong perspective that dads matter, and particularly dads matter in the lives of sons and the development of future men. And, that there's probably a little void in me even today, Matt, from that experience. And then there was another sort of round of trauma that I went through shortly thereafter. And so the biggest learning that I have from that you could carry forward to college, my professional experience, corporate America, private equity, now doing nonprofit work for the last almost 8 years, is that I just firmly believe God puts people in your path and in your life for a very specific reasons. And I can go back to my friends in high school that kind of walked with me. I was frankly just with a few of them at the Georgia-Kentucky game back in Louisville, Kentucky, or Lexington, Kentucky a few weeks ago, speaking of UGA football. And, the people that are now on my staff today at Giving Company, helping us navigate this crazy world of Christian media and running a nonprofit when our competitors are all for-profit, everything in between. I just have a conviction that God shows up in lots of ways, but for me, predominantly, it has been the people that he has put in my life, including my wife of almost 30 years now. I wasn't always the best example of a father. I had anger from time to time, frustration from time to time, stress from time to time. But there's just something about, I think, having an older male as a man that you can learn from and dialogue with and relate to. And, Drew and I probably have our best times on the golf course or on the fly fishing stream, just doing our thing, but hanging together, being together, and sort of letting the conversation flow naturally. And then for me, if I were to dial back the clock where we started, like I said, I just feel like there's been a little void in my soul and look, my mom is amazing. She's 83 years old, incredibly healthy. She stepped up. I was the youngest of 3. I only have older sisters. So I literally was with women from the time I was 12 for, the next round of life, which included middle school and high school and early college, which is tough times for men, probably tough times for people, period.
Yeah.
Mom did an incredible job, taking care of me and shepherding me. But I just feel like there was a void in really important times where you're getting older as a boy. I become a teenager. I learned to drive. I'm looking at colleges, deciding what to study, all those decisions. There's just, it felt a little bit on my own, if you will, in a time when I think a dad would have been helpful in filling that gap. To be very honest, I said, God, if this is what you're asking me to do, my answer is, of course, yes. But I said, if this is not you, if you're not in this, I don't want to do it. It's got huge financial implications. It's got all sorts of implications. But what I did love about the company was it was in the consumer technology space. So we do websites and apps and streaming and e-commerce and all those fun things that are more in the consumer space, which I didn't have a lot of experience with technology. My world was always corporate and business to business.
Mm-hmm.
But the giving aspect of the mission was brought on early by the board, and they really wanted giving of money for the causes of the marginalized and the ignored and the underserved around the world to be a part of the business model. And it just so happens that personally, my wife and I had been involved with World Vision for many years already. And so I kind of was like, wow, what would it look like to combine work with, like you said, service and giving? And so I said, you know
Wow.
what, God, I guess you're asking me to do this. And there was a little side benefit that my family really did need me a little bit closer to home as well. So I, I do have to say, hey, there were definitely some very personal realities that I was dealing with that maybe God was saving me from as well. So that's how it went down. And it's been the last 8 years, and I love the work, and I love the team, and I love our partners. And it's like I told you, it's a really great job. This side of heaven, none of us know, right? Like we really don't know. It seemed like an interesting time when I was presented with the opportunity. I wasn't aware of the challenges that my job and my commute was creating for the family. There were significant financial benefits of being in private equity that, look, these are real things, right? I mean, my employees, our employees at Giving Company, they're thinking about career progression and salary and all these things that are real things. And you have to juggle all these things and make the best decision that you can. I will say that my daughter and I, when she was a senior in high school, she got the opportunity that seniors could have lunch off campus. And so every Thursday was our work from home day. We had a work from home day way before COVID. Like we were ahead of our time at Giving Company. We had a work from home day on Thursday. And so on Thursdays, I would go have lunch with my daughter every week. And she was a senior in high school. And it's going to be tough for me to get out. But we're having lunch one day, and she said, Dad, I hope you know how much this means to Drew and I that you decided to be home. And, my kids are teenagers, right? So I'm like, do they even care that, do they even care that I'm around? Like maybe it would be better for them if I was commuting more, because they would have more freedom and they would have less imposition on test scores and doing their homework and what time are they going to be home at night and all those things. But my daughter's super intuitive and really deep as a person. And she said, look, this is just incredibly meaningful to us. So anyway, that was a good reinforcement early on. The work is hard. I think this is the other thing that I've learned. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent for a minute, but I was having a conversation with Mike Bowles, my dear friend Mike Bowles. He works for Back to Back Ministries earlier this week. And he and his wife, Karen, amazing people. They adopted 3 girls from Mexico, sisters, all sisters. They were, 10, 12, 14, somewhere in that age range when they got adopted. Well, it has been a really tough journey, to say the least, for Mike and Karen. Really tough. And so I would also say that kind of about Giving Company, like the work isn't easy. It's really hard. We're in technology, which changes all the time. Apple and Facebook and Google change their algorithms all the time. They fight with each other, which puts the consumer in the crosshairs, which is never good. As I mentioned earlier, we're a nonprofit competing with really well capitalized for-profit competitors. Like it's hard work. And, our employees are wanting to be fulfilled, and they're wanting to make good money, and they're wanting to provide for their families. And yet all of them have leaned into the mission of Giving Company. And so, to all your listeners, eternal optimism is the right phrase, because doing what God wants you to do, asks you to do, living in his will doesn't mean it's all rosy. And it doesn't mean it's not hard. And it doesn't mean you're not going to wrestle with what is your destiny this side of heaven. Those are all really tough questions. And after 8 years, Matt, I still wrestle with some of those. But the reality is I love the work. And at least for some period of time, my kids recognized that there was a bit of sacrifice there as well.